Well, good evening, folks, and welcome back to the farm. This evening, we're going to check in on our soaked chicken feed. So yesterday, I let the chickens out of the chicken tractors, and they're not really free ranging. They're inside of a netted area, but they can stretch their legs a little bit more than what they could before. And so as a result of that, decided to transition from dry feed inside a horizontal feeder, or sorry, gravity feeder. What would that be? Vertical feeder. Anyways, from the regular feeder that we have with dry grain to just feeding wet feed directly on the ground. So one of the challenges we've had, and I showed you this yesterday, was accessibility of the feed. So let's have a look inside the bucket here. So this is the bucket that I soaked here yesterday, and we were talking about stuff like this, right? This little field pea right here, that ordinarily, while it's dry and hard, is maybe a little less palatable to a chicken. Once it's soaked, it becomes a tasty little morsel. So they're more apt to actually want to eat it. Same with the sunflower seeds. When the meat chickens were younger, they wouldn't eat these at all. They would just get in there with their beak and they would just move all that stuff aside while they went for grains like this. So soaking it does, make some of the stuff more accessible in terms of, because it's softer, they could eat it and it doesn't get hung up in their throat. It also, if you recall from yesterday's video, where I reached in there with my hand and, came out with a mitt full of powder. Now all of that powder, that, additional 10 to 15% that would just, blow away in the wind now, there'd be just a plume of grain dust, essentially flour, now is tied up inside this bucket, and it's going to be usable. It's going to be edible. So the other challenge I have is always, well, do I want to feed chickens right before I head off for work in the morning? And so I'm going to wear my work clothes to go out and do this, right? Just a standard Tattersall shirt and some olive green chinos. If I were to go out at 5 o'clock in the morning and I were to feed dry grain, I'd have, grain dust all the way up to my elbows. And like I said, when I pour it in from the pail into the feeder, there's just a plume of grain dust that comes out and it gets all over my clothes. So not really feasible. So typically what I've been doing is moving and feeding and doing all the kind of chicken-based chores in the evening, because I can come home from work and I can get changed, and then I don't have a dry cleaning bill or anything crazy like that. What I'm going to do today is feed the wet feed without getting changed. Well, that's like 98% true. I will change the footwear. Footwear is a must, because if you go to tip that bucket over, if you get a little bit rambunctious, you could spoil your shoes, so to speak. What's really interesting is just how heavy these buckets are now, because they've got, I filled them with grain up to about here, and then I filled them to right about here with water. So they're, I don't know what the weight is, but they're incredibly heavy, probably close to 60 pounds probably per pail. So there's also going to be that weight side of things that's going to reduce the feed intake. You can imagine a jar full of big marbles, and then you take all the fine stuff that was previously, like I said, blown away in the wind, and you add it to the mix. The same volume of grain I'm putting in the pail every day, but there's more of it that's actually getting consumed. Plus it's loaded with water, so my water consumption goes down. Now typically every single day I'm feeding 2 of these jugs to those. I think there's 58 chickens in there. So we're going to see over the next day or two how much, if at all, that reduces overall water consumption. So I did get the question the other day as to whether or not that little horse over there respects the electric net versus maybe something like an electric ribbon. I know this is a bit of a tangent away from the whole chicken side of things, but I thought it interesting because, yes, the horse respects the net, but we've got 2 different styles of net here. So this one is the poultry net. It's got like a 2x4 opening, and then over there is actually a sheep net. So it's, I think they're 4x6 openings. And so you can see we have an evacuee. So on the back side, they've actually been able to make their way through the fence and then come out on the outside and come for a grand adventure. They're not going to leave. They're not going to go anywhere. It's not going to be like, you know, they're not going to put like a little knapsack on and go hike down the railroad or anything like that. But they are able to get out a little bit. So we're just going to herd this one little chicken back all the way around nice and peacefully, and get it back with its friends here. Go on, chicken. There you go. Maybe I'll just pick you up and put you across. How about that? That'd be easier, hey? Never mind, she popped through over there. I'll let the horses herd her back. Maybe I'll just dump some feed and she'll come back in of her own accord here. Yeah, she'll figure it out. So you can see here, this is the feed that I fed yesterday. So, you know, quite a lot gets discarded. We're not consuming lots of it, it just kind of gets trampled on. So that's kind of what we want to reduce, is that picky choosy eaters kind of thing. Get some more feed efficiency out of these chicks. So this is the part where, you know, you want to change your shoes. You want to wear some kind of rough shoes for this, because when you go to dump it out, if you spill, because I'm just going to dump it right on the ground, you end up with a big pile of porridge, just like that. And thankfully today I never got any on my shoe, but I have in the past, where maybe I've got a little, you know, extra with the water, so to speak, and the porridge is a little bit soupy, and then I end up with it on my shoes, and I gotta go either clean or change my shoes before I head off to work for the day. But you can see, they absolutely love it. Good. So I can afford to conduct an experiment like this, where I literally just throw grain on the ground, and if these chickens don't eat it, I have the background knowledge to not worry about that, because I have about 75 laying hens over in the other chicken houses that free range the whole farm. And so when the day comes that I take this net down, they're gonna come here and they're gonna strip this bare. They're gonna clean it right up, and it won't be an issue at all. All right, so these are our two vacuum style waterers. You can see they look a little bit different than maybe what they would at the Peavey Mart, but I've got heat trace wrapped around them, and then I got some insulation on them. This allows me to keep them outside the chicken coop during the winter time, but that doesn't mean I can't use them all year long. But anyways, they are officially empty, so we're going to start with 2 full jugs. Tomorrow evening we'll come back and see, and that's, like I said, that's every day. That's everyday consumption, is they will empty 2 of these. So tomorrow we'll check back in and see if feeding the soaked feed has reduced their water intake any. Now, of course, it's going to be a little bit skewed by things like how much humidity is in the air, whether or not there's morning dew on the grass, you know, if it's raining or anything like that, right? That could definitely skew it. It's not science, it's purely anecdotal, but nevertheless, I'm going to be interested to see how it works out. All right, well, they got their food, they got their water, they got their beds for the night. I think that's about all we're gonna get done. So probably a good time for me to go in and fetch up a cup of tea. So I'll let you go for now. Hope you have a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.